questions. People that want to go back and ask questions, feel free to do that, but let us, have you stay here as well.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Griglione, and I lived here forever, it seems like. Anyway, I want to take us back to the HOV-3 ramp, the new ramp up to Seminary. I followed this from the minute it was even a thought. And at the beginning, the ramp was to be constructed to allow people going to the BRAC building only. We did not want a right turn off of that ramp, nor in the morning, nor a left turn off of Seminary onto the ramp in the afternoon. Our city backed that, and we tried our hardest to do that. That did not happen. The Federal Highway Administration came in and trumped everybody else. I'm here now hearing that that HOV ramp will remain HOV-3 forever. Can the Federal Highway Administration come in and trump everybody and change that?
The usage of that ramp is stipulated by the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and they did designate it as HOV-3 and transit only, consistent with the previous commitment. The Federal Highway Administration is fully aware of that commitment, so, can things ever change, ever? Yes, they can. I mean, I think, we've talked about that today. So, I mean, that's the commitment. That's, where we stand today.
Okay, I like hearing that. Yeah. I like hearing that that's the commitment today. But in the future, we can think that there will be changes there. And that's fine. That's fine. Just as long as we have that information. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Felix Oliver. This is the second meeting I've been to, and up until today, I'm still not convinced and sold on this project. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. And one, the cut-through traffic has not been properly addressed. And when you have more construction, especially on 395, you're going to have more cut-through traffic through our communities. And with that cut-through traffic, there's going to be road conditions that are going to need to be addressed, and so on and so forth. And I didn't hear anything about that. That being said, the other issues I had were there's no financial plan, there's no annual transit payment agreement that you brought to us, and like the young lady back here said, you're putting a cart before the horse in that respect. I have two questions for you, and one is, why is there only one company, Transurban, and one proposal for us to view? The second question is, what is Transurban's community reinvestment plan? And I think that's extremely important. I think that's, to me, the number one, if this goes through, that's the number one question I'll continually ask.
Okay, I'm like losing. What was your first question? Sorry.
The question or my concern?
Let me talk about cut-through traffic and traffic during construction, because that is an issue we haven't really yet talked about tonight. But we will have a traffic management plan that looks at all different kinds of strategies that we can do to ease congestion during construction. And it is our goal to make that as efficient and effective as possible. That said, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that there will be no cut-through traffic ever, or that there will not be some pain with this construction. I mean, that's just the area that we live in. There's a lot of traffic to deal with, but we're going to do our best to make that as easy as possible and with the least amount of impact to the traveling public as well as to the surrounding communities. In terms of cart before the horse, the reason that we don't have a finance plan today is because we don't know the cost of the project, the scope of the project. We're out there doing condition assessments. We're looking at, where will the noise walls be needed. We don't know how communities will vote. So we don't really have a lot of that information. But that's what we're committed to doing in September, to have that information available in the September-October timeframe, to present that to the public so that you'll have some idea, even though the numbers won't be final at that time, but that would be before we actually sign a final agreement in January. And then in terms of why is it only, we're only talking with Transurban, a couple of things I want to mention about that. In the 95 Express Comprehensive Agreement, it gives Transurban the right of first refusal to do this project. It does not mean that VDOT has to accept their proposal. So they're going to come to us in September after we've talked about scope and all of that with a finance plan. And if the department determines it's not in the public interest, we have the ability to go out and competitively bid and have somebody else do it. So that's something that is going to always be out there as an option. And I would note that unlike the 95 express lanes where Transurban already had a design-build partner on board, they are going to competitively bid the design and construction to ensure that they get the best pricing, the best value for the work that's going to go on. And that's related to the design and the construction of this very first phase.
So your question about community investment, you may not be aware, but Transurban has a very active and expanding community grant program that we provide grants to community organizations, homeowners associations, and other entities along our corridor. And if you want to get with me after the meeting, I can give you some more information on who to contact that if you have an organization that's interested in applying for one of those grants.
I don't have an organization that's interested in applying for the grants. And there's a general question, I think that the public that's going to be affected by this project, which I am totally against, needs to know that up front, and I think that should be part of the proposals that you bring forth to the general public. To me, I really believe that there's one winner in this whole project, and it's Transurban, which is a publicly operated company out of Australia. And it just baffles my mind that some of these basic questions, especially with the finance side of it, can't be answered. We're spending a lot of time here, and we're spending a lot of our taxpayers' dollars to do just what we saw, and we don't have the basic questions answered. I really think that Transurban is doing a mission creep through Virginia, DC, and then Maryland. So we're going to be the losers. Transurban is going to be the winners. So thank you very much for listening.
Hi, my name is Terry Adams, and I live in Fairfax County, just south of the proposed project. As a matter of fact, I'm right at the proposed project. But I had a question about what has changed since 2009, 2011, when the former project came up. I remember Arlington County was opposed to dropping off all the traffic in Arlington County because the District of Columbia refused to go along and widen their access roads coming from the highway. And I just wanted to know what changed.
So I think one of the things I mentioned was the Shirlington access, which was of particular concern in terms of the same things that you've heard tonight talked about. The seminary ramp is that ramp would be south facing and provide people access at Shirlington, and there was concern about cut-through traffic and what local traffic that would generate. I think in addition, this commitment to a transit payment is one of the things that, and the focus on improving traffic in and around Eads Street has also made it more acceptable to the localities. We did reach out to the localities. Both the City of Alexandria and Arlington have responded in letters they have concerns as well about the project. There certainly are things that they want to see addressed with the project, and we're working on doing that through the early design and environmental process.
And right now, as it stands right now, we don't have an idea of what that annual transit payment amount will be, right?
Correct.
All right. And so is that going to be designated for maintenance of the road?
No, it would not go to maintenance of the road. That's a responsibility that Transurban would have, and that's part of what, that toll money gets paid for is they're operating the gates on the system, they're reversing the lanes every day. They also provide safety service patrol, and then they're responsible for both the short-term maintenance and all the long-term maintenance that would occur during that 70-year term, and then they're required to hand it back to the state in a state of good repair. So resurfacing, restriping, all of that, that money gets also paid for out of those toll revenues.
Right, and that would be for the 3 lanes that you are going to create.
Correct.
Only. So
Correct.
the other lanes are still paid for by we the taxpayers, correct?
The general purpose lanes outside of the HOV system, yes, those remain a VDOT responsibility. We also do retain responsibility for snow removal on the express lanes. That's similar to all of our other express lanes.
Okay, and does Transurban reimburse us for that?
For the snow removal, no,
Yes.
that's just a responsibility that we have agreed to take on because we had all the equipment. We're kind of making the decisions about what types of treatment, consistent with everything else that we're doing on all of our other roads.
So, and I'm trying to get, what's the benefit to us, the general public here, to convert this? I don't hear, I've lived here for, right off of that exit in Edsel Road for 13 years. I've seen the traffic, I've gone through the construction, and I don't see the change in the traffic pattern. Now, I appreciate that now that the HOV lanes are heading southbound in the afternoon, and people who don't want to pay the tolls are getting off on the Edsel, heading towards Edsel Road or Turkey Run. They're getting off there, backing up traffic. Those 3 lanes, or 4 lanes of traffic, and now 3 lanes, and it has gotten tremendously worse since that construction that you did, making those 3 lanes and that overpass and the hot lanes. So I just don't see that, again, the benefit for us. HOV is HOV. We want people to pool together. You know, we want to do slugs, which I think they do a fantastic job. And Prince William and Stafford, you know, VDOT has as well, creating the parking spaces, and people are doing that. They're taking advantage of that, and they're going into the Pentagon and they're dispersing. And I think that's exactly what I heard you say we want to happen. That's happening. So I don't understand why we're turning over this property so that one company can benefit, and I just don't see the benefit to the general public.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, we've talked about some of those benefits that we're anticipating, but I think that's something that we're going to be able to certainly talk about a lot more in September when we have the results of our traffic studies. You know, I think getting noise walls constructed in this corridor for communities that want them is certainly a benefit to mitigate the noise that they already are, you know, being impacted by just because of the corridor out there. You know, the other thing I would talk about just a little bit is, and we'll see more of this with our studies that we do, but you know, when the HOV hours were over, slugging stopped in the 95 corridor. And what we're seeing now is that because the lanes function beyond those hours, that we're seeing carpools form after those hours, because there still is a benefit for people to be in carpools. And so that's one of the, certainly the benefits of having more access for people that are carpooling. We're seeing the lines extend beyond what are the traditional HOV hours, even at the Pentagon, even though the northern section there is still, you know, operating on those same hours, but there's a benefit south of there to continue carpooling even after the traditional HOV hours are over. But we will be able to have more data to really be able to talk about what those benefits exactly are in September.
Great, thank you. And I would just say that having experienced this whole process before, from September to beginning construction in the spring of 2017, it seems like an awful short time. Because if you come in September and there are issues, perhaps the community, perhaps we'll win one day. It just seems like an awful short time. Because if I'm planning a project of this magnitude, 6 months is a very small period of time to get your employees, to get your trucks, to get all the equipment that you need and supplies that you need in place to even begin Having said that, I just wanted to say, I think it was Mr., is it Roseman? Yes, sir. You said something that I was hoping you could clarify for me. You said something about the transit payment going towards some projects in 2040 and beyond.
Yeah, well, so what the RPT's been asked to do is to develop, in cooperation with Alexandria and the other counties and the regional transit entities that I mentioned, is come up with a plan, a program of projects of new transit service, transportation demand management, carpool, vanpool, those type of things that could be funded, and it'll be a long-term plan. So it would have, it would look 25 years out, starting, in the next probably year to two is when you would start seeing new service come out. But it would be a long-term plan.
Okay. And lastly, in terms of lessons learned, we had no financial give back from Transurban for 95 corridor or 495 corridor, and so all the money is going to Transurban.
Well, there are provisions in both of those contracts for revenue sharing when certain rates of return are reached. But I will say what's different about this is there's no annual transit payment that comes off the top that's kind of baked into the base financial case. That will be different in this project.
All right, thank you.
Quick follow-up on that, because I heard this and I want to know if this is true. Is there something in the agreement between the state and Transurban that if Transurban doesn't meet a certain amount of revenue, the state pays them the difference?
On 95 Express, there are certain provisions that are related to HOV usage. If it exceeds certain percentages on the 95 corridor, it's sometimes referred to as shadow tolling. It's again a complicated formula. It only is in play in certain years. So it is in the contract, though.
If they're paying to use it and they're getting the benefit of it, they should take the risk. And
Let's let some other people.
Go.
It's a win-win.
So we are at 8:30. We're going to keep going with some questions. Hopefully we can get to the rest of them.
Okay, my name is Carol James. I live in the neighborhood. Two concepts that have come up here have really resonated with me. One of them being echo chamber, and the other being mission creep. And with respect to the echo chamber, there are plates in those overpasses that jangle and create noise. So I really think you need to look at the noise on those overpasses. When we voted for or against the sound wall in our neighborhood, we were assured that there would be no hot lane, that there would not be another lane added to that overpass, which indeed was added subsequent to the vote. So this situation has changed. Not only that, but now we have the West End Transit Way contiguous with your project. Going along Van Dorn Street, which would add lanes on Van Dorn Street, leading up to the intersection of Rickenbacker, Sanger, and Van Dorn, which is a level F service rated